Hello, everybody. Let's try to get my setup here. Hi there. Just getting my hands-free set up here. Hey, Brenna. Laura. Oh my goodness. So cool to see people. Sorry for my futzing with technology here. I don't have a pandemic pal to help me hold the phone. Okay. I'm hoping this will be okay. Oh, God. We're giving people a minute to join, and I'm pretending this is a normal thing to have happen. Is that okay? It's slightly crooked, but I think it will give you a chance to be able to see. I'll aim it down just a little bit so you can see what I'm working with. So hi, welcome to, we're 12:02 now. I can go ahead and start, right? Welcome to a Skillshare through the Emily Taylor Center for Women and Gender Equity at KU. I'm really excited to be back actually doing, I guess, a part 2 from the fall session that we did on seed collecting and seed keeping. So today we're going to talk a little bit about seed starting because it's that time of year. My name is Emily Ryan and I also work on campus, but this is sort of a different aspect of my life that is a really passion project of mine. And I'm grateful to Meg and Bulong for letting me speak through this series again. It's something I care a lot about, and I think it's a really empowering practice. So I'm always happy to be sharing what I know. I'm not an expert, but I have a lot of experience. And so with that, please feel free to ask me questions at any point today. Because I think gardening is such a unique experience to every individual person that I want this to be useful to you. So please ask questions if you've got them. So the sort of overview of what I want to cover today, I'm guessing this will be like 20 minutes. So if that's too long, join back up later on. Here's what the outline will be. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the value is in starting seeds. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about where you can find seeds. Then I'm actually going to demonstrate a little bit without doing what I can with technology and only 2 hands. And then at the end, I'm going to point you toward a few more references that I value and think are awesome for different things that I'll probably allude to throughout the process today. So, thanks for joining. Feel free to, again, use the chat in any way to let me know how I can best tailor this presentation for you. I want that to be valuable. So I want to talk a little bit, I guess, first, just to explain why I do this. As with anything, it's helpful to have a goal in mind, I suppose, when you start doing something, even if that goal is just learning something new. And for me, this is a very personal practice, but I'm grateful that it's also one I get to share with a lot of people. And through that, I learn a lot more every time I do it. So it's something that helps, I think, a lot with mental health. You spend a lot of time in sunshine, and you spend a lot of time with your hands in soil, which there are actual scientific studies to prove that is beneficial to mental health. It's obviously a physical health benefit as well as emotional and social. There's community around this kind of thing too, whether you're learning, whether you're community gardening, whether you're talking about the meal you made with something you produced. That's amazing. I myself spent a year in AmeriCorps, 12 years ago at this point, working on a farm, and my job was in part to be working on the farm and in another part to be building an education center where I was talking specifically to youth and families about how to start their own growing practice, and then also what nutritional benefits there were to producing and cooking, preparing your own food. So this is something that's been deep within me for a long time, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on and think about. And I'm really grateful that all the time I'm learning new reasons why this is important for me, but also in a broader scale. So I guess I also just want to mention that food is power. And so there is also activism in this work. As I'm sure you know through news and local events, access to food is not something that everybody enjoys freely. Access to nutritional food especially. We're in a country where a lot of people live in areas where they don't have easy access to food, and especially not nutritional food. Sometimes they're referred to as food deserts. There's also the term food apartheid, which is powerful and reflects the influence of the human hand in decision making in creating those spaces where people can't access food. It is also, for me, a way of connecting to a land and a space that I'm in. I'm not from this part of the country originally, and I also have no native ancestry in this country. So my ability to commune with the soil and to learn from land, from the creatures that inhabit it, from the weather, from the plants that I'm working with, is all part of a personal practice, but it's one that I feel is very important in terms of reciprocity and what I can be giving back in gratitude to the earth, which provides so much. So that's a little bit about my own background and interest in this. I would welcome you to consider, in the hours you spend enjoying the sun and growing, what value it's bringing to you, and feel free to share anything you want to. I'm always happy to learn more. All right, so the first question after the why was about where to find seeds. So depending on what kind of scale you're working on, there are a lot of options here locally in Lawrence. I really like to go to Carton's because they have a lot of varieties. Also, they're super helpful and friendly and have a lot of advice and suggestions if you're into that. They have some brands there that are based locally. One is called Buffalo Seed Company. It's actually based in Shawnee, Kansas. They have a seed farm there. They grow crops that will do well in this climate because they can. And so you know that if, at least if you're in the Lawrence area, that the seeds that you get from Buffalo Seed Company would work in this climate. There's also a company called Seeds from Italy, which they carry at Carton's. So that's a company that's local. They source seeds of specialty produce from Italy, heirloom varieties especially. And there's another brand at Carton's called Renee's Garden, which I really like because I've had really high success rates with germination of those seeds. So I recommend all of those. And then there's also the Lawrence Public Library, where they have a seed exchange, a seed library where you can get seeds for free. And also lots of books and information to help. So in any other year, there's a February annual event called the Kaw Valley Seed Fair. I would recommend following them on social media so you can get information. They know a lot about, I shouldn't say the event hosts a series of demonstrations and workshops and things like that so that you can learn about specific areas of the process you're interested in. They also have a lot of seeds available for free. You can exchange, or you can just come, bring some, donate, or just take some. It's an awesome event. It's at the fairgrounds in February most years. And so those are some local options. I tend to grow on a pretty large scale for gardening, so I order a lot of seeds online. The companies that I really like to order from are Johnny's, which is based in Maine. I think that right now they're on a little bit of a delay with ordering because of how many people are interested in gardening right now and keeping up with supply, which is great. I guess it's great that there's so much demand. But it's all the more reason to be saving and using seeds, I guess, ourselves. I also like a company called High Mowing. I'll show you these. These are some examples. So this is what a Johnny seed pack looks like. To kind of orient you. So there's information on the seed pack about what the seed is, how many are in it. It tells you a lot about, how many days to maturity. So there's a lot of information on any seed pack. This is a High Mowing seed pack. They're all organic, but the prices are actually pretty comparable, I think, to other companies that I source seeds from. Again, there's a really interesting, helpful guide to each individual species on the back. Seed Savers is another place that's in Iowa. And I'll talk a little bit more about this organization because it's helpful beyond simply being a provider of seeds. Here's what the educational panel looks like on the back of their seed packet. So among the sets of information on the packet, you'll find name of crop, obviously. Also dates. So there should be a date that it's packed, but then likely there's also a second date that's the date by which it should be sold. So, for example, this packet right here says packed for 2017, sell by 12/31/2017. Some seeds don't keep very well more than 1 year, especially the ones that are like have a little bit more permeable crust or like outer shell. Seeds that have a little thicker outer shell do better to be, because they can contain their natural ecosystem a little bit longer. For the most part. That's not true with all cases, but anyway, here are some seed packets. Let's see. Oh, and there's also a company that I just recently learned about called True Love Seeds. I would recommend looking at their website, and if you're interested in any of the species or varieties that they have, they're really interested in the seed keeping work and the heritage and story that accompanies different crops, especially those that have been brought from other countries and other parts of the world, and the culture that comes with that. Okay, so we're moving along. Still no questions? So the next thing is getting seeds started. I think the hardest thing probably, or the most intimidating thing, and it's frankly for me still years after doing this, is just getting the timing right of all of it. Part of it is because you're trying to predict the weather. Good luck. The last freeze date in this part of the country is usually like it's usually safe to count on like 2/3 of the way through April. But in any given year, we'll have like one random day after that that's not. So there are ways to take precautions if you've moved things outside earlier than that and need to keep them protected. But that is to say that a lot of seeds need to be started inside because they need to grow in a more controlled climate than we have outdoors right now before they can be moved outdoors. Tomatoes are a really good example of that. So they need several weeks of indoor sort of coddling in a warm temperature with a more controlled like set of climate conditions, not windy, that kind of thing, to get them started. And so I would probably be starting tomatoes in about a week or so. I mean, you could be starting them now, frankly, but I run into getting too excited and starting things too early, and then they're like, I'm so tired of being inside, but it's still too cold to move them out. So I think last year I started things in like March 5th or 6th or something like that, a lot of them. However, today, what I'm going to actually start with you is some lettuce, because that is a cold weather crop that doesn't mind being out in cooler temperatures. And actually the germination, as it will say on the back of these packs, there's an ideal temperature for germination for lettuce is lower. So the fact that my like poorly insulated apartment has a cooler room to be starting seeds in is not problematic for lettuce right now. So I have a seed trays like this, but if you're not trying to grow, 120 seed lettuce heads, then you don't really need something like this. However, it's nice to have a tray like this, and you could put your whole garden in there to get started with at different times. Again, they have trays like this at Carton's. I think they have the 72 cell trays there, which I really like. Those are a little better. So this is a pretty small. Can you see that? For lettuce, there we go. For lettuce, it's 20, but a 72 cell has bigger cells and fewer than this does. So you could start a tomato in one of those cells and let it get all the way to, about this height, which is when you want to take it outside probably. If you started tomatoes in this tray, you would need to transplant them a couple times because this is just not enough space for their roots to develop. And ideally, with most crops, once you start them inside, you don't want to have to transplant them multiple times, because every time you do, it's a shift in environment and they have to kind of adapt and adjust, and they don't grow as smoothly because they're busy putting their energy into adapting. So other options besides this kind of style of tray, these are just toilet paper tubes that I've cut in half, And if you have newspaper, or this is just like craft paper for packing, but it's something that will decompose, you can just wrap it around the toilet paper tube like that. And then as long as, I mean, I would poke a tiny hole in here for drainage. That's important with seeds. But you can set up a tray with a whole lot of these on it. And this is totally free, right, to create something like that. Another thing that I just have, right, it's just something lying around is an egg carton. Important to note that this is not a styrofoam egg carton. Obviously, it's a pulp one. But egg cartons will decompose. So by the time you have, started 12 seeds here, and, they're to whatever stage you need to take them outside, this is probably already going to be pretty broken down because it's going to have been wet so many times that it will have softened. So what you can really do is just sort of separate each cell and pop it right in the ground like that. If you feel like the root structure is strong enough, you could pop this off and just pull the transplant out and put it right into the ground as well. So those are some options. So then you've got, maybe I'll walk through this, doing a egg carton with you. So the next thing you need is a medium for putting the seed in. So the medium needs to be something that holds the seed in place and also provides nutrients to the seed to be able to grow. What that means in terms of texture is that it needs to be dense enough that it can hold water, but arid enough that it has drainage so that the seed doesn't rot. Because I have rotted a lot of seeds by overwatering and loving them too much. And then the other component is the nutrient value. So this is a potting mix that I got at Cotton's. I really like this one. It's the brand is called Black Gold, and it's in a black bag with like an orange label on the front. They also have a seed start mix, which I've used before, but that one is more on the arid side. Like, it doesn't retain moisture quite as well. So if you have that one, what I would do is add some more like humus or compost to it, because that's a structure that will hold the water in place a little bit better. So you can make your own soil for potting. Just notice it's just not the same thing as like if you go dig up dirt in the ground. That would be topsoil, and that lacks the nutrients and doesn't quite have the structure you need. So what you would want to do in that case is, if you had topsoil from the ground, is add to it something that will make it more arid. So, sometimes you see those little white styrofoam pebbles. This is actually vermiculite. You can buy just this to add to soil, and that helps create space so that the roots can grow and that it's not so dense and thick in there. The seed can push. Another option for that is coconut coir. This is something that expands, and you add water to it and it expands, and then you can kind of just mix it together. And then the third component, so topsoil, something to aerate it a little bit, and then also a nutrient. So compost, manure, something like that would work, although manure gets complicated. So maybe let's just stick with compost for now. Or what I'm going to use today, which is earthworm castings, which is technically, I guess, is manure of earthworms. So anyway, so those are the three parts you want to be mixing together, relatively equal parts, to make a potting soil. But I'm going to start here with this potting soil. And just kind of sprinkle it in to this egg carton. I'm filling it about a third of the way up right now. And then I'm going to add, because I have experience with this, I don't think it has quite the level of food source for seeds in it that I want. So what I've got here is earthworm castings, which is really powerful nutrients. You can also get compost tea is another way. That's just sort of like water that's been sitting and filling with nutrients because it's been steeping in compost, or vice versa. So then what I like to do is just make sure this is really smooth, break up any chunks that are in it, and just kind of sprinkle that on top very lightly. Like, this is potent stuff, so you don't really need much. I probably use for 12, I probably use like 1/8 of a cup maybe, and that's probably more than you need. And then I'm just going to come and put just a tiny little, just cover the top again with like a dusting of the topsoil, or potting soil. I'm just jostling it here to level it. And then what I want to do is, with my finger, poke a little hole in each of these soil beds, and I'm going to plant romaine lettuce right now. So this seed is, I mentioned a little bit before, but I think about lettuce seeds being more vulnerable. They're tiny also, and I have kind of clumsy fingers, I'll just admit. So this year I decided that I would be much more efficient with my seeds for lettuce, and I got something called pelleted seeds. So I'm trying to show it to you. You can see that actually. So a lettuce seed would be really hard for me to show you, just one. But because it's pelleted, it's sort of like candy coated, basically. It contains the seed, so it's covered and protected. I think the germination rate's a little bit higher when you have pelleted seed, but it's also more expensive and you don't get as many seeds per pack. So there's a trade-off there. So then with most seeds will typically tell you on the packet what the germination rate is. So like, I think you can see that says germ 91%. This is a pepper. To me, what that indicates is that there's a good chance that most of the seeds are going to germinate. I like to usually put 2 seeds per cell unless it's something that I don't have enough seeds of, I guess, really. Just because the odds of one not sprouting are pretty, like, reasonable. So that's 91% germination rate in ideal conditions, and I don't always have that in my apartment. So, anyway, I'll say I'm going to put 2 seeds per cell here. And then on this seed pack, it will tell me how deep to plant these, and I'm going to guess it's like 1/4 of an inch. So I'll just make sure then to cover them lightly after that. Yeah, okay. So again, just a little jostle makes that possible. If you feel like your seeds are too exposed, you can go ahead and just sprinkle a little bit more. So that's like a lettuce seed, for example. And then with watering, I specifically like to use a can like this or a pitcher, something that will allow me to get right down close, as opposed to those big garden watering cans that kind of do like the shower head. If you're in a greenhouse and can just like spray everything, more power to you. But for me, this controls the flow of water so that it's slow and doesn't upset the entire, because like right now this is kind of dusty because it's a dry mix of soil, and so yeah, it'll take a second for the water to seep in. But this kind of watering can allows you to pour slowly if you're trying to aim for like a little cell such as that. Okay. Still no questions? I feel like I had a lot more I wanted to tell you, but I'm also probably just talking quickly because I'm anxious. Okay, so I think we're now at the resource component. Oh, okay, so sorry. The most difficult thing probably about getting seeds started at home is lighting. And that's because plants typically like, there's a better light than just an ordinary fluorescent or tungsten lights that we have in most houses. So there are specific lights. If you get really into this and want to get all souped up, you can get aquarium lights, aquarium and plant lights. They're a little bit pinker, but you can buy at Home Depot or Cotton's or something like that. You can buy like a fluorescent light frame like you see hanging in like warehouses and things like that. And you'll have the tubes, but look for the tubes that are plant aquarium as opposed to just regular white light. So that's one option. But if you don't have that, which is totally normal, south-facing windows have really good sun, and you can just place this in a window. The trick is that once the seeds start to sprout, you'll want to make sure that you rotate it periodically because the seeds will stretch toward the light. And in order for the sprouts to be strong, you want them to try to grow straight up as much as possible. So continually moving them around, they'll, kind of like dance to find the light. Okay. Still no questions. Hi, Charlicia. All right, so now we're at resource sharing part of today. I think. Oh, one other thing I forgot to tell you. I'm sorry. So once you've planted all of the seeds, you want to mark them. Probably. One thing that's really tricky about the whole process is keeping good records, because for me at least, I get so excited that I don't want to like sit there and write everything down. I want to just enjoy it. But it's important, and it helps year to year with scientific data and that kind of just knowing what worked and what didn't work from year to year. So these are basically just old popsicle sticks. You can use anything you want to, but I really like having these in, because if I have these in a seed tray kind of marking what I've planted. I like to put what it is, but then also the date. So I know, like that really should have germinated by now and it hasn't. So I maybe need to reseed that. I also like to use these though, because once your seed tray is full of sprouts, these work really well to just kind of like go down the edge and pry up the sprout. It works well better than like trying to, with a tray like this, you can't really like tip it over to try to dump out the sprouts or the transplants very easily. So dual purpose that way. Okay. I want to show you some books. So these kind of are all, you can determine based on where you're at, these will be different for different people. This is a book I really like, and it primarily what it serves to explain is companion planting. Companion planting is the idea that some plants do really well as neighbors, and others don't. So, for example, I always plant marigolds within my tomatoes because marigolds draw the pests, the common pests that will attack tomatoes, also like marigolds, or don't like marigolds. So they'll either go into the marigolds and avoid the tomatoes entirely, or they'll steer clear of the entire bed because they don't like the smell of the marigolds. So that's an example of a companion pair. This book has pretty much every fruit, vegetable, flower you can think of and suggests what goes well with what. Additionally, if you're sort of in early stages of garden design, or if you're like looking at an outdoor space, it has a lot of suggested plans for how to create space, like a lasagna garden is one type, postage stamp garden is another type, just depending on what kitchen herb garden, depending on what it is that you want to be growing, going back to that whole goal that you created at the beginning. This is a really good resource. It's also just a cute title. Okay, this book is amazing. I don't know if people have heard of it or read it, but it is a guide to basically everything you want to know about farming and everything you should know also as you're taking on this responsibility and this joy, really. So it brings in a lot of social history, what it means to be growing in land in this country, and it also gives you a guide for most plants, how to seed save, how to grow, how to produce more with the space that you have. It even gets into like if you're farming with animals and trying to raise meat, it even gets into that. Really highly recommend. Leah Penniman, Soulfire Farm. This is her book. And then this book is a very different resource, and it's produced by Seed Savers in Iowa, which I mentioned earlier. They're an awesome resource if you're curious to know about seeds specifically, like who grew this crop, when, what climate did it grow well in, what kinds of food did they make out of the food that it produced. And it's also great if you're interested in seed saving or seed keeping. This is a good book to reference. It's also just beautiful. It goes kind of like species by species suggestion. So there's native plants in here as well as food crops for gardens. Johnny's has seeds. They also, johnnyseeds.com, I think it is. They also have a really good glossary of how to find any information about growing things if you're interested. Same with Seed Savers. They have a good library of information. Anything else? I think we ran like 5 minutes later than I said, so I don't want to keep you. All right, I think this gets posted on the KU Emily Taylor Center for Women and Gender Equity YouTube page. And if you do think of any questions that I can help with, that's one place you can ask them, and I can periodically check it and see what I can do. But I think everyone who's here knows me, so you can also find me another way. And I really love talking about this with people. I love trying to help share knowledge if it can. As I said, I think it's very empowering and just joyful. So take care, y'all. Have a great day. Thanks for joining today.